Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfix. This will be the continuation of Watch Your Heroes Fall. This will be Part 22, Chapter 25, entitled Phase 3, Step 4, Dodging Bullets. Aizawa Shota honestly wanted to turn Night Eye away at the door. He wanted to slam the fucking door on his stupid glasses and dyed streaks, and he honestly would sleep better at night for it, too. Aizawa's office is tucked in an empty back corner of campus, and everyone cleared out the minute classes ended, anyway, so nobody would notice if he strangled Night Eye against the door frame and tore the labels of his stupid fucking suit. But it wasn't just Night Eye showing up at Shota's office an hour after classes ended, the Friday of the week that started with Endeavor's arrest. Yagi Toshinori was with him. And Shota might not be All Might's biggest fan, especially not now, but Yagi is a coworker, and one who's been having a rough month. So Shota opened the door, even after Night Eye started, with the line, "I'd like to recruit you and some of your students for a clandestine operation." Shota opens the door, turning his back on them to stalk back to his chair and lounge in it, with an expression he hopes conveys at least a third of how displeased he is. "You want me to let you use my kids for a suicide mission, with odds so shitty you can't even get another pro agency to sign with you." "That is not what I said," Night Eye says. "Is it what you meant?" Shota asks. Yagi cuts in. "Aizawa, please." And he looks so deflated that some of the wind comes out of Shota's sails, too. Yagi says, Just hear him out." Internally, Shota is thinking that Yagi Toshinori, in this moment, signing up kids for professional-level hero work with less than a full year of training, makes him sick. But he folds his arms and gives Night Eye a terse nod. Night Eye returns it. "Thank you. You know of the Shie Hisaikai, correct?" "I'm an underground hero. It would be harder for me to not know the primary crime syndicate in Japan. I run into some members at least once a month." "Then you know they've had a change in leadership in the past few years," Night Eye continues. He pulls out a glossy picture from a manila folder. "This is Chiseki Kai, the new head. We have reason to believe he has been creating a quirk-erasing drug by manipulating the extracted DNA of this girl, whose identity we haven't been able to confirm." There's another picture, a toddler caught on grainy CCTV footage. "We would like to borrow just 4 of your students, Kirishima Eijiro, Urarako Chako, Tokuyami Fumikage, and Asui Suyu. We are also borrowing 3rd years Tokuda Mirio, Amajiki Tamaki, and Heido Nijiri." Shota leans forward, uncrosses his arms. Yagi sees what's coming and sighs heavily, which almost stops Shota, but not quite. "Let me make sure I'm hearing this correctly," Shota says. "You want to take 4 first-year heroes, first years as in 15-year-olds, with 6 months of training on them apiece. You want 4 of mine, and then 3 third years, which is hardly any better, to go headfirst against a crime syndicate that's been on the rise ever since their aggressive and very probably psychopathic new leader took power using a drug that can erase my students' quirks." Night Eye looks uncomfortable. "Good," Shota asks. "Did I get that right?" "Please, just—" Night Eye tries. Shota interrupts him. "Oh, I forgot. The odds are literally so abysmal that the idea couldn't get past the analysts of any of the other hero agencies you pitched this to. But no, sure, let's hear your plan." "It has to be in the next 3 days," Night Eye says. If Shota were a more sensitive man, he might say Night Eye sounds desperate. "You know my quirk. You know what I can do. So you know that I'm certain when I say it has to be in the next 3 days." Before Shota can ask, Yagi answers. "In 3 days, they moved the little girl to a new safe house." "Just 1 meeting," Night Eye says, and yes, he is begging now. "Please. You can supervise every movement we make. You have the final say if the students can participate, but we need more people." Shota sighs. He knows this problem. It's the trolley problem. But with his students on one track and this little girl, and potentially a lot more people Shota will never know about until it's too late, on the other track. As a teacher of a class of students who have really been through far more in a month than most people should have to endure in a lifetime, he wants to throw Yagi and Night Eye out. He really wants to spit in their face for asking and bodily pitch them both out of his goddamn office. Fuck your mission and fuck the Shie Hisaikai and fuck your eager willingness to put students into the line of fire on purpose when it has already happened too many times on accident. Shota knows that, this time 6 weeks ago, he really would not have minded too much. He would have reasoned to himself that his kids are hero students, and they will have to do this in the field one day, and there will be pros supervising every move. Now every base molecule in his DNA is screeching that they're 15 years old, and I'm supposed to protect them, and God knows that pro heroes can hardly protect themselves on missions like this, much less kids. But if it's not his kids, he knows Night Eye will either pull hero students from, say, 1B, or maybe Shiketsu. He'll either find the manpower and students or send the pros and sidekicks that have already signed on understaffed. And it's not like the cause isn't good and noble and all that other bullshit. It's a genuine problem that needs solved. But Shota isn't sure he wants to sacrifice his kids on that altar. And if this mission fails, then it's weaponized quirk-erasing drugs out on the street. It's the rise of crime syndicates with a power vacuum already well underway, with All Might's retirement and Endeavor's arrest, not to mention the previous number 2 hero Hawks is refusing the number 1 position, citing, "Look what happened to the last 2. No thank you." Most of the other top 10 pros are following suit. It's only been something like 2 decades, but everyone had become accustomed to a designated number 1 hero. It had been a safe feeling, even if something were to go wrong. Here is one face we can blame, one shoulder we can cry on, one monolithic image of a hero. But now the number 1 hero is gone, and the man chosen to replace him has been so thoroughly disgraced that he'll spend the next 10 to life in prison for a laundry list of crimes including and not limited to child endangerment, assault with a quirk, and attempted murder. Nobody else is standing up to take the spot. Hell, Shota wouldn't take the spot if it were offered. And if Shota doesn't lease this man his kids, like soldiers to the front lines, then that problem gets worse as a man charismatic enough to double the size of the Shiei Saikai in less than 5 years rises to more power amidst a manufactured mass quirk crisis. "I'm going to be present at every meeting," Shota says slowly. Night Eye's expression brightens, and so does Yagi's, and Shota can't help but resent them for that. "I go wherever my kids go, and the third years too. They don't leave my sight. If I say so at any time, and I mean any time." "You can pull them," Night Eye finishes. "Understood. You can retain that right. We can get it in writing if you want." "We both know writing doesn't mean shit," Shota says. "But sure, put it in a contract if you want." Night Eye stands, maybe to leave, maybe to grab the briefcase he left by the door. Shota says, "When are we meeting to discuss the plan?" Night Eye swallows thickly. "Tomorrow morning. The raid will be on Sunday." Shota sighs. The kids are at home now, except Uraraka, who can't afford the train tickets back to her family every weekend. What will he tell them? What will he tell their parents? How can he justify this to anyone? There's a knock at the door. "Come in," Shota says. There's some quiet muttering from several voices, but nobody opens the door. Eventually one calls out, "Mr. Aizawa?" "Midoriya!" Shota cries. He stands up and goes to the door. Yagi and Night Eye are right behind him. Yagi's trying to push past Night Eye and Shota, trying to get to the door to see Midoriya, but Night Eye has the forethought to realize that Midoriya came to Shota's door specifically for a reason. And Yagi, without his puffed-up strength, isn't even a match for Night Eye's academic build. When Yagi finally shakes off Night Eye and nods in agreement to keep quiet, Shota opens the door just a crack, and sure enough, the previously deserted hallway now holds Midoriya, beat to shit and followed out of a warp gate by an equally beat-to-shit Dabi, Magne, Todoroki, Yaoyorozu, and Toga. "What the hell happened?" he whispers harshly, keeping Night Eye and Yagi out of the sliver of a gap in the door. He doesn't want Midoriya to see them and run away, especially not if Midoriya came to him for help and can be convinced to finally go to a fucking hospital. "Okay, so, honestly," Midoriya says, "not super sure, but these guys tried to kill us, and also, they're child abusers, and we don't have access to a jail cell. Can you, call the police? Say you captured them?" Shota holds up a finger behind his back to Night Eye and Yagi, who, bless them, listen to him and stay quietly behind the door, and Shota slips out into the hallway. "Sure, yeah," Shota says. "I'll call the police, and an ambulance." Magne laughs. "Eraserhead, you know better than Izuku that you don't call an ambulance for a villain." Shota frowns at her. She's an adult, she should know better. "I do, when the villains are my students and the adults taking care of them." "Hey, hey!" Toga Himiko starts. Dabi interrupts. "Not the time, Short Stack." "Izuku promised I could ask if I came with." "Ask what?" Shota says. "Is Ochako here?" she asks, grinning. Izuku says she stays here at the dorms. I want to talk to Ochako. Shota thinks this through and gets an idea. Yeah, she's here. If you wait for an ambulance, I'll call her over. Himiko does not need a second to think about it. Okay, she says, and falls to a sit on the floor, crisscross applesauce. She gets a bit of blood on the carpet from a cut on her leg. Todoroki and Yaoyorozu both help to drag her to her feet. Todoroki says, Himiko, the first responders are legally required to arrest us if they take us to the hospital. Himiko pouts and stomps back through the portal, grumbling about stupid, stinky men. Shota says, Okay, if you won't wait for an ambulance, at least let me patch you all up. Nah, Racer Man, Dabi says. Kurogiri's got a huge first aid kit, and we can all patch each other up pretty good. Look, he says, and pulls up on his sleeve, and then wipes blood off of that arm with the same sleeve. No more staples. Thank you, Big Sis Mags. Don't call me Mags. It's 2 syllables. You can manage that. Okay, wait. Shota interrupts. Where are these villains? Right here, Yaoyorozu says, smiling and nudging Todoroki to laugh with her. Shota actually smiles too. Yaoyorozu was never that much of a jokester when she was in his class. I meant the villains who put you all through a cheese grater, Shota says. And then Dabi laughs. You guys never told me Eraser was funny. That joke wasn't that funny, Magne says. You're delirious. Concussion, Shota guesses, feeling his fingers itch to call an ambulance again. That's Hitoshi and Compress, Midoriya says. Kurogiri's taking care of them. Everyone else just needs to eat, and probably hydrate. Momo's the only one who's eaten yet. Thank you, Himiko, Yaoyorozu calls out through the warp. The villains, Shota repeats, feeling a little frantic. Oh, Izuku says. Right. And Shota pokes his head through the warp, and then Twice and a copy of Dabi are each carrying a full-grown man hog-tied, gagged, and blindfolded through the portal. They do this several more times until there's a pile of about 10 bound and gagged men laying on the hallway floor in front of Shota's office. They all appear to be alive. This is the most people that this hallway has ever held, Shota thinks. He picked this office when he was hired because it's hard to find in a small building tucked behind another, much larger building on campus. Now he's glad he picked it, because concealing a semi-conscious pile of criminals and a beat-to-shit group of friendly villains would be impossible in any other location on campus. Last one, Twice says, and drops none other than Chisaki Kai on the floor next to the others. Shota's brain temporarily short-circuits. He stares. He blinks. Do you know who that is? He asks. He said his name was Chisaki, Midoriya says. That's all I know. That's the head of the Shie Hisaikai crime syndicate, Shota says. Midoriya blanches. Oh shit, really? Yaoyorozu doesn't know who that is, and she opens her mouth to ask, but before she gets the words out, Night Eye's voice comes from inside Shota's office and he screams, What? Through the door. Immediately, the villains panic. There's other people here? Magne squeaks and then drags Dabi and Yaoyorozu through the warp. Thanks, Mr. Aizawa, Midoriya says, and then goes to follow Twice and the copy of Dabi and Todoroki through, but Shota stops him and Todoroki. Twice stops too, eyeing Shota suspiciously. Any time, Shota says seriously. But you stay safe, okay? Say it. We'll stay safe, Todoroki says, face puzzled apart with an emotion Shota doesn't recognize. All right, and you come home soon, too, Shota says. Twice smiles at him from next to the warp. Midoriya laughs. You sound like my mom. And then both of them are gone through the portal, and Twice gives Shota a little salute and follows them in, and the warp closes. And Shota opens the door to his office and says as calmly as he can muster, Hey, Night Eye, would you like to call the police to collect the villains you wanted to massacre my students to capture? And Yagi and Night Eye all but fall over themselves, getting past Shota to look at the villains, and Night Eye pulls out his phone and Yagi looks around and counts and then turns to Shota and says, Where's the child? Shota looks down at the pile of Shie Hisaikai higher-ups, looks over the grainy CCTV image, and mutters, Oh, shit. It's Sunday night, and Ochako is finishing an essay for her modern, heroic arts class. Even as the world falls apart around them, students have homework. To Miss Midnight's credit, it's a very easy essay, 500 words on the importance of an authentic hero image, with at least one citation from a primary or secondary source. Ochako figures probably most of the class will be shitting on Endeavor, so she's taking another route to give Miss Midnight's brain a break while she's grading. It's not like Miss Midnight wants 16 reminder papers of Shoto's face being slammed into the floor. Ochako was writing about Cerberus's part in the 8th Street Quake rescue operation. Cerberus had been a C-list hero at best before, but now she's a household name because she was willing to work with a group classified as villains to protect the greater good. It's a nice story, and Ochako smiles to herself at how little pepper flakes of irony always seem to find their way into the soup of life. Ochako's neck prickles at the feeling of a new presence in the room, and she turns around to find Izuku, bandaged all over, with a toddler clinging to his leg. "This is Ochako," Izuku tells the toddler. "She's going to get you to an adult who can watch you for a bit until I come back." "I'm going to do what with who?" Ochako cries. The toddler flinches, and Ochako flinches back. Whoops. She takes a breath, trying to clear her mental space to deal with this. "Izuku, whose child is this? I am more than happy being your informant, but I am not a babysitter. I will text you or call you with any information, but you can't just be dropping kids on my lap. Sue is the one who's good with kids, and she's not even at the dorms until tomorrow morning." "I'm not asking you to babysit," Izuku says, getting exasperated. "Just bring her to Mr. Aizawa, or All Might, either one. They know who she is, but I can't find them." "Who is she?" Ochako asks. "I'm Eri," the toddler whispers. She's literally wrapped around Izuku's leg now, hiding her face from Ochako. "She doesn't like shouting," Izuku says. "Can you just take her to Mr. Aizawa, please?" And Ochako looks at the little girl, steadfastly hiding her face in Izuku's pant leg, her little horn poking out at the side, yellow sweater dress probably made by Momo. Ochako can tell, after seeing enough of Momo's work. And what is she going to do? Say no to such a cute child? Just because Ochako is awkward with kids doesn't mean she doesn't care about them as little people, so Ochako nods to Izuku and squats down. "Hi, Eri," she says. "My name's Ochako. Can I take you to Mr. Aizawa?" Eri peeks out from the leg of Izuku's sweatpants. Her eyes are bright red, which Ochako hadn't expected. Eri looks up at Izuku first, and after Izuku assures her he'll see her again soon, and that Mr. Aizawa's a nice man, and Ochako's a nice woman, Eri nods. "Okay," she says, and Ochako reaches out a hand, and Eri takes it. "See you around, Izuku," Ochako says, but Izuku is making a face. "Could you do me one more favor?" he asks. Ochako doesn't even have time to groan before Izuku sticks a hand through the portal, and when it returns, there's Toga Himiko attached to it, grinning and bouncing on her toes. "She really wants to say hi," Izuku says. "Hi, Ochako!" Himiko shouts. Eri giggles. Ochako thinks about the double standard with the yelling. "Momo and Itoshi and Magne been telling me about boundaries," Himiko says. "Sorry for trying to stab you before. I just really want to be with you more." She wrings her fingers and looks down at her feet to hide the pinkness in her cheeks. "I didn't think I could just ask." Which, to Ochako, sounds a little insane. Just ask. Surely literal murder comes to mind after asking, like as a last resort. But no, Himiko's first thought is murder, for some reason, and Ochako can't really fault her for it, not entirely. I mean, Ochako's family may not have been rich or nothing, but it was probably better than being homeless as a middle schooler. Himiko's got her own past that Ochako knows nothing about. "Can you tell Sue, too?" Himiko asks, head still bowed, still wringing her fingers. Ochako smiles a little. She nods. "Sure, Himiko. I'll tell her." And Himiko perks right back up, hearing Ochako call her by her first name. "Really? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can I give you a hug? Pretty please." And she looks so happy. It warms Ochako's heart. She says, "Sure, yeah, I'd love a hug." Himiko sprints into Ochako's arms and holds on for dear life. Eri drops Ochako's hand just in time and smiles at them. When Himiko lets go, Ochako's almost sad to see her leave, but Izuku says, "See you soon, Ochako." And Himiko says, "Bye-bye, Ochako, thank you." And then they're gone, and Ochako's left with just Eri and her unfinished modern heroic arts essay. "So, Ochako starts, and Eri grabs her hand again. "You want to go find Mr. Aizawa?" All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 25 of Watch Your Heroes Fall. Chapter 26 will be up next. I hope you all are still enjoying this one. Let me know your thoughts and reactions to this chapter, and as always, thank you so much for listening.